Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 91st episode of Concerned Dabs Podcast. I'm your host, Katie M. Kane. Our guest tonight, ladies and gentlemen, he is a board member on the Minority Cannabis Business Association. He's also doing some work with Students for Sensible Drug Policy. He is an advocate. He is a lobbyist. He is right there on the front lines telling those suits what the fuck it is and how the shit's supposed to go. His name is Jason Ortiz, ladies and gentlemen, in the building. Can you hear us, Jason?
Thank you for that. I feel like I'm on World Wrestling Federation right now.
No doubt, bro. No
Love
doubt.
it.
Yeah, you are, bro. Like when I see you
Oh,
posting,
it's true though. It does. It feels like I learned a lot of how to organize in the cannabis space from watching The Rock and Stone Cold go at it for years.
Yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Because it does. You're like, it's like you're the heel. You know what I mean? And all those guys are the
Yeah.
fucking-
And you got to turn. Sometimes you're the good guy. Sometimes you're the bad guy. You know?
Yeah, and it is, dude. Like I feel like you got to feel pretty lonely in that room sometimes, you know. So it takes balls to stand up and say what you're saying in front of those people unapologetically, you know.
Yeah. And I don't remember actually the last time I was here, but I actually went to a space where I did have to be kind of the bad guy when they had the illicit market summit in Boston. That was back in February. Yeah, that was bad.
So like everybody there is underground, and you're trying to.
Oh no, the
or what?
opposite, like the worst thing you could ever think possible. And so, what actually it was the industry that was having a conference with law enforcement in the room to talk about how they should crack down on the illicit market. And I was there as the person that was kind of like repping the illicit market and had
Yeah,
to, you know,
like it's not worth the trouble, guys. Why don't you just win the race? You know what
well,
I mean?
it was interesting because they had like a lot of time spent on IP, intellectual property, and like people stealing their wrappers and logos and like labels and then selling it as like I was like, yo, nobody's real. Like I'm never thinking like, how do I make my shit look like Curaleaf? Like that's never entering my equation. So
yeah,
but
like
being
I've
there,
seen Jungle Boys post shit like that. Like guys stole our sticker, and that's not our shit. But
right,
and then a couple of breeders. I saw a guy post some Dynasty genetics online, and I was like, that's not it, bro. He's
right,
like, yeah,
right.
it is. I'm like, no, it's not. I bought those from the guy at the shop, and they don't come in that packaging. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
no,
can understand a little bit, but for the most part, it's like, nah, bro. Like, your
and there are
shit's not
printers
that
now.
hot.
Like there are people printing all kinds of bags and labels and stuff. You can go online right now and get all kinds of
Oh
things.
yeah. Well, there was a time that I got some no-name carts when I was in AZ. You know what I mean? And
Sure,
people wanted the packaging, and so I ordered it on fucking Amazon. Like,
of
boom, ping,
course.
ping. Here you go. You know, and then
You get a bag, a plastic bag that says "Runts" on it. That's amazing.
yeah, with the cartoon logo.
So it's happening, right? But it was like the way that these folks were talking about it was just like, oh, it's undercutting their ability to sell. And I was like, no, it's not. Like you're just growing trash, right? And like
Yeah,
I
dude.
go to the dispensary and check, right? Like every once in a while to see if I should be worried, right? And almost never do I come out and like, oh, they're not going to get us on quality ever. And so, but at this summit, it was scary because I felt like it was drug war 2.0, right?
Yeah,
Like now we're talking about it out in the open where big cannabis, big business, big corporations are openly discussing with law enforcement how they're going to, you know, get rid of the
the
folks that are
competition. Yeah.
unlicensed, right?
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's
Because
unlicensed.
it is, dude. And it's not like I just don't feel like anybody who is unlicensed is really going that hard. You know what I mean?
No.
It's like, dude,
It's the same people stopping me from getting a license want to crack down on me for being unlicensed, right?
yes.
So it's like, no,
Dude, yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
here in Connecticut, for
That,
example,
and that is a good point, dude. It's the people who are placing these barriers to my entry into being a licensed cannabis businessman are the same people trying to, you know,
use the police to shut you down,
yeah, like that's
right? Like,
bullshit, dude.
and
And
that's
like in Oregon, it's the worst too because the OMMP, the medical program, has just whittled down to fucking bullshit now. It's like you can only have 2 cards as a grower. Otherwise, you have to track everything according to the rec fucking CDCL system. You have to get the metric license and put tags on. I'm like, that's bullshit for 3 cards. You know what I mean? Like that's
right.
fucking
Yeah.
whack, man. Like I just, and there's a few guys that I know who are dealing with it just to jump through it's like, man, whatever. I don't want to fucking be rec. I still want to do this and be able to give shit away and
Right,
It's
right.
more control with medical, you know?
Sure. And Oregon is light years ahead of the East Coast. You
Yeah.
know, like to even think about, right, like the difference there. In Connecticut's medical program, there's only 4 growers allowed, like 4 entities total, right?
Damn,
Like
that's
3 of them
crazy,
are
dude.
state operators, like, and
No
they
home
have
cultivation?
no, nothing. And I
Damn.
can't get a license, even if I had $1 million, I can't just go get a license. And I wanted to go through all the
Not the
hoops.
Puerto Rican kid with the
Oh
glasses,
no.
man.
Oh,
Don't
the
fucking give me
Russian
one.
mafia, sure. We'll take Boris Jordan's money in Cureleaf, but like the Puerto Rican that's been growing in Connecticut, no, we don't want him to get involved.
Yeah.
So, and now, I'm on actually the governor's like discussion group on recreational and how we're going to move forward and everything. And so it's just wild because I'm one of the few people that have any expertise on any of it. And so
Sure.
everybody is like, no, we can't have those people get involved with the cannabis industry. It's like, any of you have any idea of how to run any of the details, or who any of these people are that are currently running the medical industry that you seem to think are great people? They're literally used to work with Putin, right? So like,
Yeah.
it's wild to see that like adults, mostly boomers, can have this like huge disconnect with local kids must be bad criminals, but
Yeah.
if it's corporate money from somewhere else, oh, they must be great people, right?
Yeah,
And
man.
that's what we're living in Connecticut right
That's
now.
how I feel with most tribal leadership too, dude. It's like, yo, you got kids who went to jail on your res for the same shit and then left and fucking mastered the game. You know what I mean? Really got some game.
Yeah.
You want to look those kids over when they already fucking took their licks under the system that you had in place. And you're not gonna, not even, it's just, dude, I try not to bitch and moan too much, but it's like, yo, let me present it to you like this. You know what I mean? It's like,
and
fuck.
so I've had to be in these spaces, like you were saying before, and telling folks, listen, first of all, when you talk about these illicit market bad actors, like you're talking about me, right?
Yeah.
Like I have been there, and I have to always be like careful of like how present.
No admissions of guilt.
Right, exactly. And I'd be like, I have in the past done some things,
Yeah.
And so in that space, though, I had to really be like, you have to reframe how you're talking about people like me and call us aspiring entrepreneurs, not bad actors, right? Because the whole way that you're discussing this is like you're ready to go to war with us again.
Yeah.
And that is not what the lessons that should be learned with recreational, right? So like I was in the room with the police chief of Boston, right? And so there's actually an article about it where he's confused about what police's role in a post-recreational society is.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same thing that you were doing before that has all its own problematic issues, but now without weed attached to it, right? Like it's not like there's a new society now. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I just don't know what my purpose in life is now that Jason can't get locked up for a joint anymore. It's just so mind-boggling to me how different some of these folks see cannabis, right? And like people that use it or grow it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like his identity was coming into question because we legalized. It's like, well, maybe you shouldn't have been so wrapped up in locking up kids for weed to begin with, and you wouldn't be so like heartbroken about it. But in that room, I could see that things are advancing in some ways and definitely like taking steps back in others. And there are some real like red flags that came out of my experience there that I want, like all the activists that are currently involved to be very aware of.
Yeah, preach about it, bro. Like shit, because I got to interject for 1 second. Like last month, I was in Lewiston getting some snow tires put on my rig. You know what I mean? And I'm in the waiting room, and there's a fucking state cop there, and he's talking to these 2 old white guys about the legalization of cannabis and how there's all these DUIs now, and we just pull them over as soon as they cross the bridge. And I'm like, dude, you're just watching from this side of the river, and it's like they're pulling out of that place, crossing the bridge. Let's yank them. Bam, they got weed, and that he said that too. Like, no, when we pull their blood, it's in there. I'm like, bro, it doesn't leave for fucking 30 days. Like, you guys are whack. You can't prove impairment. And he's like, oh yeah, you can. I'm like, no, you can't. I was like, I've seen all of those studies. There was a bunch of them in California and Arizona. They're trying their best to come up with a breathalyzer or some sort of test like they do when you're drunk, and it doesn't work. All of their studies say that when people are consuming cannabis and they get behind the wheel of a car, they are actually more cautious and more careful. They drive a little bit slower and a little bit safer and are actually less likely to be in a car accident. which
And
is
the
the opposite of alcohol.
roadside blood test is fucked up at face value,
Yeah.
right? And the cops are gonna be like, "Yo, we need some of your bodily fluids real quick." Just
Yeah. That's hella invasive, bro.
it's like, and this is after legalization, right? Like, how are we making things more serious, right? Like, and that's when
It cost more money too, dude. Like the point was to fucking not spend this loot on this bullshit. You know what I mean?
well, and it's just amazing to see the commitment to bullshit, right? That like how much of people's identities, their jobs, like all of it is just caught up in completely useless and unnecessary bullshit. That if we admit it, right, then their jobs are going to go away, and so they will fight to the death to keep these nonsense behaviors continuing. And this is again in 2020, right? We're talking about this not 2021 now. You know, I think we made it. We made it in 2021.
Yeah.
But the drug war made it too. It's still going. People are still getting locked up. Like the cops are finding more ways to deal with how they're going to incarcerate people. And it's like we're not learning. We're changing the laws, but like culturally, we're not really learning the lessons that we should have been of like that was a mistake. Right?
Yes.
Just like we're willing to end it, but we're gonna pretend like it was still right to do it. We're just gonna stop. You know, that is not what we need to have happen.
I agree. And a lot of my complaint too is like the regulation is just a barrier to entry. It's like the way you guys are drawing it up is just to make sure we can't have some too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it bothers me because it's like all of the it's like it does fucking seed to sell. That's bullshit. It's like you guys could get the money off the tax at the point of sale in the legal spot or not. Like I would rather sell it to a store than sit there and answer my phone and make fucking drops all day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and so
about the tracking, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because everybody can possess it. So what the fuck is the deal anyway? It's like why not let whoever? It's like nah. It came in a sealed bag, evidence bag. It got fucking tested. It passed. The shit's legit. It's on my shelf. You guys get your little fucking 12% tax off the fucking gram. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you know, of course that would make a lot of sense, right? That if we allowed small farmers,
and I'm just speaking ideals here in a perfect world, Jason. You know what I mean? But like that's that's how I look at it. You guys are just fucking making this shit up to fucking make sure I can't get a plate at that table, man.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing I can say to argue with that because that is exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
And you can see it happen in real time, right? Like you can see it with the laws that are passed. So like Jersey, for example, you know, Jersey just passed legalization.
And that's rec?
Rec, yeah.
Okay. And so did they allow for cultivation?
No.
Fuck, Jason.
I know. That's what I was just about to say. So like, this is the thing, right? So Jersey comes along and they pass a ballot measure that the question was all messed up, right? But the ballot measure doesn't actually put any policy into place. They still had to go through the legislature to actually put in the regulations. In that, they split the like regulatory framework and the decrim part of it into two different bills, and it ended up getting all kinds of messed up. They did decrim mushrooms more in the process, but they did not legalize homegrown in any capacity. And it's an incredibly restrictive program. I mean, there are some advances in like the idea of a micro license is pretty robust, but overall, like they almost didn't pass the decrim side of it at all. And so there was this big problem. It was like, oh, we're going to put a regulatory framework, but not fucking actually change the criminal justice side of this. And so, you know, a bunch of legislators threw a fit. We're like, no, we're shutting this whole thing down. And so it was this whole big mess. And then they passed it, and they didn't clarify what the penalties for underage were going to be. And so it like almost got vetoed for everything else got figured out. And then that afterwards was like, oh, now we got to talk about underage. And then I almost blew it up again. So like we're passing laws, but they're so haphazard and like not properly thought out, right?
Yeah, dude. Well, I mean, even on the ballot, bro, there's like fucking 20 words. And the bill is like fucking 200 pages, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like, and there's somebody can sue, I guess, right? But there's like no real recourse for the person to say, yo, what it said on the ballot included homegrown.
Yeah.
Like you can make the argument, right? And legislators did, but it didn't win in the end, right? Because
that's
of
whack.
And like, I know it is.
Because that's how it was worded on the ballot in Oregon, in Arizona, Montana. I think California too got it right, but not in Washington. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like,
And still, Washington still doesn't have homegrown?
nah, you have to get a medical card, which is they made it really difficult to do after rec too. They started making doctors report how many recommendations they were giving per month, and
So
it's just like,
Chicago, I think, or Chicago, Illinois had patient home grow, right? When they passed.
yeah, Michigan, yeah, I think so. Yeah, Detroit.
Right. So that's the thing. There's like it's different everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You're a different, more freer human depending on what state you're in.
Yeah, bro. It's strange, man.
And
Like,
so now I have now invested time and money, and we're about to be more full time in Puerto Rico. So I just recently in September got word that I'm allowed to move forward with a medical cultivation facility in Puerto Rico. Yeah,
fucking
10,000
dope,
square feet.
bro.
10,000 square feet.
Right.
I want to pull up the little um, thing with the actual seal on it.
Oh, so you got like some official paperwork and everything?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. Hell yeah, dude. Super sick.
I don't know if you'll be able to see it on here. Let's see.
Yeah, dude. There's got to be there's got to be some kind of land race wild shit down there too that you could plant seeds and start running crosses with.
The guy normally anyway.
That Puerto Rican OG, man.
Can you see it? Let's see.
Dope. That's cool, man.
See it, right?
Way to go, Jason.
It's got the like symbol on the gold stand. Yeah, so but that's crazy. I had to go back to Puerto Rico, which is great. You know what I mean? It's like dream come true. Instead of growing in Connecticut, because Connecticut is just so old school. I literally had it easier to go get started over there than here. Right? It's dumb, but Puerto Rico will win out because of it. And I think even in general, being able to grow in Puerto Rico is going to be smarter long term anyway, right? Just because of the sun, the environment, the cost, right? Like everything. And eventually we are going to see some kind of interstate commerce where we'll be able to ship, from one place to another. And that's where I think, the future of the cannabis industry, as far as like the big scaling up is going to happen, is the interstate commerce.
Well, I want some more tribes too, man, to flex that muscle, bro.
Absolutely. So the tribes are the biggest.
We could order packs from Puerto Rico from Jason's Grow and sell them.
That's right, man. I'm saying, and the tribes
we got some Puerto Rico, we got some South America,
top shelves. That's what I'm saying.
I mean? Yeah.
And I think so. There's so much I could talk about on this one, right? So actually, we're pushing. A friend of mine has been started the Campaign for Sensible Markets. He's in Oregon, Adam Smith. But the idea is that we want the new administration, if it was the other one, we would ask him to, but to allow for any states that agree, or tribes or territories, as part of the conversation, that agree to have commerce with each other can.
Man, dude, because that's what I'm saying is, and if there's a couple states between us, then fucking fly that bitch over there. It's like we gotta be on the ground. Don't we have to be on the ground for their laws to be fucking effect on?
Well, kind of. So there's actually a lot of like previous law about this, and tribal law and tribal truckers, right? About whether or not the tribes are allowed to use other commerce. And so the thing is that in the early treaties, as fucked up as they are, there were certain rights to go between places that were given. So in theory, that tribal distribution of cannabis like should be allowed. If the tribe itself allows it, in theory, the U.S. can't tell them they can't sell that on those roads. Because the tribe can decide what it wants to sell on the roads. Previously, I'm going to guess it had to do more with livestock or things like that, right? But
fishing or,
like you can't say no salmon on this road, right? Like, so in theory, the tribes right now could be the largest interstate operator, right? Like possible, like even bigger than most states can be. Maybe California is bigger, obviously, you know what I mean? But like, one of the biggest entities in the country is, like the Navajo Nation or the various tribes deciding to do commerce with each other. So it's not a law yet, but we want to push the administration, like short of legalization. I doubt either of the two that are taking over are interested in legalization, but short of that, just let us have commerce among each other if we want to.
Yeah, man. Because there is, man. There's certain places in the map will just fucking produce better outside than others. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And you know, if indoors the fucking everybody can control an environment after a few cycles, bro. You know what I mean? So it's like
Right,
that.
right.
That's
Yeah,
fine. I'm not gonna be a hater, but it's like I am a fan of sun-grown shit from different places, man. It's, you know, the tests are always
let
higher in
people
cannabinoids. I feel like it's better medicine for me. And that it's more opportunity for branding for companies. You know what I mean? Like I
for
honestly
sure.
think it's gonna be like wine. You know what I mean? There's gonna be
Yeah.
different valleys where it's like, nah, you try that OG Kush from fucking Walla Walla, bro. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right,
holy
yeah.
shit, it was fire. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And
yeah,
just letting folks, figure out what they want to excel at, right? Like everybody
yeah,
can find what it is that they're really good at, and it's like maybe in PR we got the right climate for this particular strain because it's really humid, right? Or whatever. Or you
yeah,
know what? We have a lot of old manufacturing facilities,
yeah.
that used to be pharmaceuticals. Maybe PR can invest in
Hell
rehabbing those
yeah,
spots
dude.
and we send you as many dabs as we can produce. Yeah. So
Yeah,
like there's just so much possibility there that it's a very small change, right? Like at a federal law level, it wouldn't require necessarily the legislature, we don't think, but that could be game changing, right? Like
yeah,
if Oregon can ship to Puerto Rico or to New York or wherever, right? Like,
yeah,
wow. It's definitely going to get real interesting. And so like it's places like Connecticut that'll get crushed though,
yeah,
right? And so, but that's what happens when you have a shitty medical system full of MSOs. I'm
yeah,
like, crush
man.
them. I hope California does come in and blow us out of the water. Their weed's better,
Yeah, dude.
and
If there's
y'all
only
have not
four
been for
guys,
us,
yeah, four guys cannot fuck with California or Oregon,
right?
bro.
Yo,
Like
I'm
that's
saying,
just not.
or
Yeah,
export it. Go sell that shit in Russia. I don't need it, and maybe
yeah,
I can import it, right? And like that's where it gets real interesting too. So I think 2021, we have a lot of interesting possibilities when it comes to how policy is going to go, but it's clearly not. It's not going like a straight line in the right direction. Like we're
yeah.
going, generally speaking, in the
They're
right.
dragging their feet, kicking and screaming, man.
Right, right. and
Yeah,
and winning some battles and losing some battles. There's definitely times where the last legislative session when it comes to ballot measures, we'd won overwhelmingly, right? Like everywhere it was on the ballot, it won. Now
crushed. Yeah,
what
it
does
was
that
like
look like?
65% in Arizona or something, man.
Yeah, and
And
then
that's
even
how
in
it was. It only
Dakotas.
failed 49 to 51 the last time it was on the ballot. So to be like at 65 this time, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it was only like I think like 2 years ago, right? That the
Yeah,
last one was.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was
So
2018, man.
the public is obviously there and ready,
Yeah,
and the legislators though are still stuck in taking money from the people they were 20 years ago, and we have to like be eternally vigilant on the legislators because even when we pass these ballot measures, same thing's going to happen in Arizona. Next up is New Mexico. New Mexico is going to be pushing for legal as well. I met with some of the folks there. And so there's so much work that can be done in the details to hurt us or help us, right?
yeah.
Moving
Didn't
forward.
New Mexico's governor say, say that he's gonna push for rec on his own without making the fucking signatures sign on a petition and
Right.
go through the
Yeah.
ballot process?
Like the governor like wants it to happen.
Yeah, that's sick,
So
dude. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Hopefully, there's some people in his, state legislature that will be receptive to his message.
yeah. I mean,
Fingers
they'll probably
crossed.
be a bunch
Yeah,
of
yeah,
lobbyists in his state legislature also, and so
yeah.
that's the thing. There's always the big boys got the money to be able to lobby like that and hire 15 people to go to New Mexico, be in Santa Fe, be in Albuquerque, be everywhere they need to be to scoop up these licenses, keep them restricted. It's the same plan. Like they do the same thing everywhere, right? It's just like restrict the number of licenses, get in there early to scoop up any real estate or anything else that's possible. So as soon as it happens, there's just no option for anybody else. And so
Yeah,
that's why
dude. It's happening everywhere like that,
the folks
man.
on the ground, you got to be in there and ready to say, I want a license. I want 6 licenses, like I want a
Yeah,
lot. Because if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. And here, in Connecticut, I'm very worried about it not going our way. So I'm really vocal and really loud about it. But it also sometimes produces just like the status quo continues. And like I can't get a
yeah,
license now. So that's like the same thing continuing for another 2 years isn't like the best outcome. But losing my ability to get a license for the next 20 years is unacceptable. So I'm
yeah.
not going to let that happen either.
Same. Well, cause dude, when I first got here to Spokane in March, there was a news article saying that you know there is a small surplus of licenses from people who either didn't renew or you know wanted to sell or they got shut down for whatever reason, zoning or some shit. But they made it sound like there's like between 20 and 50 licenses available, you know, across retail, processing, and production.
Mhm.
And the article said that these licenses were going to be awarded to persons of color who
Right?
were, you
I heard
know, who
about
had
this.
charges, you know, who
Yeah,
are supposed to be given a shot in the game.
state equity
You know what
bill.
I
Yeah.
mean? And yeah, it was an equity type move. And um, then the COVID shit happened, and I kept checking their website all fucking summer, dude. And then right around August, September, I started calling Olympia, and they were just like, "Yeah, COVID. We're not really pushing hard for that right now. So, you know, just keep checking the website. There will probably be another article written, but you're not the first person to call." And I'm like, "Well, can you write down my name, my number, and my email?"
Right.
She's
Yeah. Can
like,
I get
"Well,
a line or whatever?
yeah, dude." And she was just like, "Well, we're too busy to even make calls back or anything. So just," and I'm just like, dude, it was like the runaround and a half. And so it's like, what are you guys doing? There has to be, you know, because those licenses I feel like are worth more now because
Yeah.
all those weed businesses didn't really lose too much this year, bro. Like they stayed open and
No,
people bought
most
more weed.
did fantastic, right? So like,
Yeah,
so first of all, we should figure out how to make sure we get you one of those licenses. Follow up with that and see who
yeah,
else is in Washington that also wants one and make some noise about it. Because I
yeah.
read the article about the whole point was we're going to return over all these extra licenses to folks that want them, and that way we don't have to like open up necessarily like a whole new thing because it's already been
Yeah,
established. Blah blah
it
blah.
is.
So
It's like you guys are making the decision anyway. You can make the decision in this other direction to be more equitable. You know what I mean? And then it's like, I'll
the
even shoot
governor
content.
was
It's like, I'll
pushing.
create content. You guys can fucking say, hey, we gave a brown guy a weed license and he's fucking doing good
Right,
afterwards.
exactly. Like I'll make you beautiful videos of me, building my facility.
Yeah,
Uh,
you
so,
know?
but as I understand it, the governor there was for it, like was really pushing it in Washington. And so, sometimes it's a matter of like bureaucratic laziness, right? Where it's like somebody actually championed it genuinely, was like, no, I want this to happen. But then the bureaucrats that work there, are like, I don't get paid enough money to do this shit,
Fucking
right?
fucking checks and balances, man. Fucking
Right. And you're like, damn, I thought we won. And
yeah.
then they pushed it over to this other department, and these people are terrible. Right. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. You gotta just keep on those people and go above them, like and keep going up and up and up. And eventually
Yeah.
use your state reps and state senators to harass people for you if they're cool. Like sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But I was helpful like one time when I was trying to get on unemployment. I was like, yo, can you call these people for me? Because like they're not returning my shit. And
Yeah.
they did help.
That's
So, but
good, man.
getting those licenses, like, definitely scoop it out. Did that because I don't think they're very expensive to get
It's
them.
only
Right?
like 5 for the actual license. You just
Yeah.
have to have the location lined up and zoned correctly, you know what I mean? And I think there is even some sort of, like, assistance program because it takes capital, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for
Like, it
sure.
you know, like, if somebody's not gonna give you a loan, you gotta partner with someone, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
And
for
that's like I was fortunate that I had a friend, an activist friend that has some means, right? That were always
yeah,
like, hey, I know what the deal is. Like, let's do this, And so like, and he got married in Puerto Rico, so he had like a really strong attachment to Puerto Rico anyway. So I was really fortunate. And
that's tight.
fortunate, we met because of activism, right? Because we were both trying to make it happen. And
Yeah.
so we were just happened to be lucky that he works in the pharmaceutical industry now, and was like, I need to get out of this, but I have this,
Yeah.
amazing credit right now. Like, let's do it. And so it's
Fucking
like,
A.
all right, let's go to Puerto Rico.
That's dope,
you
man.
know? So, that's the thing is like scoop up the license because, just like people should have invested in Bitcoin a long time ago, like once
Fucking
we
A
think
right.
about,
Yeah.
right, but like we're going to be 2-3 years from now being like, oh, I should have got that license, like 3 years ago. And
And
we
man,
have to
dude,
scratch that.
business owners build wealth, bro. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like my grandpa Jerry, his last name is Sabota. Like he was winning and had so many kids and can be a fucking awesome grandpa on Christmas to all the young kids and buy them, you know, a Nintendo or something when we were kids because he owned a business.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He owned a pharmacy. And it's like it just bothers me that it's not being taught in school. You know what I mean? It's just like get a job,
Well,
and it's like that.
yeah, that's not
You know?
what they teach you in school isn't always for your own benefit.
Yeah,
I would say. I got in trouble a lot when I was in school, and
yeah,
so
yeah.
actually, when I first got introduced to cannabis was when I was arrested in high school. And
Damn.
I learned a lot from that experience,
Yeah.
like, so I was actually walking from my friend's house to campus to NFA, the Norwich Free Academy. It's a pretty big school, actually. It was like 2,500 students at the time when I was there,
Fuck,
multiple
that's a lot,
buildings.
bro.
Yeah, it was a big
My school had
school.
like 150.
Yeah, right. And so, like, you think though at the bigger school, like, oh, they just won't notice me, right? Like, I'll just get in there. But apparently, somebody narked on me. Some like construction worker, somebody like a lady saw us walking and smoking. Because as soon as we stepped on campus, boom, the security guards came over, the little golf carts came over, and they're on top of us. And I had more on me. I had 2 tiny little joints rolled. And at the time, I didn't understand why everyone was so mad and aggressive.
Yeah,
Right? I was just like, wow, like, like this is overkill for
yeah.
whatever it is you think I did.
You're a
But
kid,
like,
dude, at school,
at
like,
school, and it was like immediate. And so then they immediately called the police, and I was like, Jesus, like, why are you doing this? Like, oh, marijuana is illegal, you should know that, blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, but like drinking is also illegal. Like, I
yeah,
know, like, why are you calling the cops on me, right? And so like it
yeah,
was just like my mind was blown. I didn't even consider that my school would want to like put me in jail over it,
yeah,
right? Like, and so when I actually first felt the metal handcuffs on my wrist, like, I will never forget that moment,
yeah,
right? Because that was like, this is some bullshit. Like,
yeah,
why is this happening? Right? Like, and the cops were super mean to us. Like, I had like done something really bad. And I
yeah.
was like, no, we didn't do anything. And
Like you
that was the
stole a
day that I
purse or
became,
something, man. It's
dude,
like, fuck.
after that, like, I was like, nah, these laws got to change. These cops got to go. These administrators are liars. Like, we went through this whole process with my mom and like going through the administration. And that's where I learned like the 3 phrases I always say, right? It was the war on drugs, the school to prison pipeline, and selective enforcement. If
Yeah.
you research those 3 terms, you will have a very different view of the government ever after that,
Yeah,
right? And
can you
so,
say those 3 terms one more time? We'll stick
sure,
those in the description on the YouTube also.
absolutely. The war on drugs,
War on
the
drugs,
school to prison pipeline,
school to prison pipeline,
and selective enforcement.
and selective enforcement. Yes.
That last one, right? Because
Yeah, bro. Goddamn right, bro.
they all have to do with like drugs, right? The war on drugs specifically, right? But school to prison pipeline is more than just drug policy. It's definitely lots of ways that we structure our school systems to ensure a certain number of people are going to end up in the prison system, right?
Yeah.
And we can do math between investments in the 2 to figure out how communities are being corralled
Yeah.
into their future. And then the last one, selective enforcement, that is one for police. They definitely enforce laws differently in some communities than they do in others.
Fuck
And
yeah,
so
dude.
there is not an even application of the law.
What,
So the whole thing is kind of a lie.
dude? Even when
But
I was an adult, bro, like I moved to Portland in 2010. I lived in Idaho, Washington from 2000 until 2010. Bro, I got so many charges in that first decade and none in the second half of that. You know what I mean? So it's like, and it was just weird being in Oregon and being pulled over and having that fear and that anxiety and like, fuck yeah, I know I got my card, but and they
yeah,
do. It's like they smell the weed. Do you have your card? Yeah, it's right here. Are you over your limits? Like, nah, this is all I got. It's like, all right, later. And
we won't ruin your life.
bro, that happened at least 3 times when I lived in Portland, and it just my jaw was on the floor. I was in shock, like, oh my god, like that never happens. You know what I mean? Like, and it
That's
never will happen in Idaho, bro. Like every time I go down there, I feel that anxiety. It's like I'm just going to my bro Dashes to go and play it, and then I'm going to my mom's. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna drive around anywhere and smoke anything. Like no nothing. Like I remember being in those handcuffs too, bro. And it was just like, fuck that. I don't, I'm gonna stick where I'm okay and don't have to worry
and
about it.
now, the way, cops are even more murderous than ever before.
Yep.
So one thing was like, oh, I don't want to go to jail because you're going to arrest me over a joint. And I was like, yo, don't kill me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, can we have this interaction and I just survive it would be nice. you know? And so
or
like,
not get stomped in the mud too, dude. You know what I mean?
yeah. So I've always been rather anti-police, you know, and it was interesting because this year as president of MCBA, Minority Cannabis Business Association,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
had the situation with the police killing people in the streets and people rising up against it and having to answer the question where folks would ask me, how has cannabis prohibition impacted race relations and policing in America?
Fuck, dude. Yeah. Like you
And
get
so
like the
like,
in the Giuliani laws in New York, bro. Like how many
right,
fucking brown and black people got tickets for weed after that shit came in effect,
it's a
bro?
question that like entire curriculums could be structured to answer, right? In the various ways that we have combined racism and drug war hysteria into this monstrosity that serves both of those purposes, right? Like,
Two birds,
and
one stone, man. Throw a bunch of them. Keep throwing them. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Fuck, that's like fuck those
yeah,
guys, man.
yeah, and it like it went to the core of who we are as a country, right? Because it's like, well, we have been trying to lock up people we don't like for whatever reasons we can make up for a very long time,
Yeah,
right? And this was one of the more modern-ish ways that we decided people we don't like politically, people we don't like for whatever physical reasons, we're going to put them in jail or servitude, right? One version of
yeah.
service or another.
Usually both at the same time for a
Yep.
long time. Yeah,
And even, we were talking early 1900s, like, remember, we didn't abolish slavery. We said you can't become a slave unless
you
you're
do
arrested
these things.
first.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's an exception in
Fucking
that
right,
13th
dude.
Amendment,
Truth,
right? It says
truth, Jason.
no one can be, enslaved, except, right? It literally says except, right? I
Yeah,
was like, how did we abolish slavery? We allowed an except to be in that. It's not abolishing them. We restricted it significantly, sure. But if you're incarcerated, you can be forced to perform labor, and you can
yeah.
be forced to perform labor for, Calvin Klein jeans, Victoria's Secret making bras. Like there's all these private companies that profit off of that labor.
Yeah.
And so it's like how has the war on drugs impacted race relations? Like, well, if you put 1 million black and brown people into prison and force them to work for Victoria's Secret so that these other ripoffs can make $1 million, and then say, oh, our bad. We didn't think that it's as bad anymore. So we gave all these rich white guys a bunch of licenses to do the same thing that you just did, but you're going to stay in prison the whole time.
Yeah.
It's like,
Dude,
why?
yeah.
Why are brown people so angry?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, why are people so angry? So like, it's incredible when I get some of these questions from a reporter, because that reporter wants me to answer it in like 3 sentences, right? And is going to write whatever I put. But the reality is that we are continuing that process. I don't think we've healed in that race relations between police vis-a-vis war on drugs, drug policy, the fact that people consume drugs at all isn't getting better. We're changing the laws so that we don't outwardly seem as draconian, but
Yeah.
people are still getting locked up, right? People are still going to be in prison, and in large part because of selective enforcement,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
so,
dude.
like in Colorado, after legalization happened, the discrepancy between people of color that got higher charges for weed, even because you were beyond a certain amount, grew. So there was a bigger gap because so many less white folks were getting caught at all, that the few black and brown folks that did get caught became a much higher percentage of the total.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, so you're only going to enforce those other laws on black and brown people. And so
Yeah.
when we talk about legalization and poor folks, this is the other thing, is that like there's a class element of this too, where poor white folks are caught up in this because the way the system is structured to require you to pay money for lawyers and fees and all of this, that if you can't provide that funding, right, which they ask of everybody, just being poor and white, you'll end up in all of this hot mess. And they want to keep that part intact, right? Like they want to be able to say, oh, well, we're going to sell things, and we don't want to give people any reasons to protest and say we're bad people. So let's visibly take that away, and instead we'll just figure out how to keep you all in the criminal justice system one way or another, and let our homies make a few millions off of it.
Yep. Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the man. The story that you just told doesn't get told in the mainstream media at all, bro. Like it's thank you for saying such things on my podcast, man.
Absolutely.
Because it
Absolutely.
is,
And
man.
Cody Rigger says hi. She just
Oh
stopped.
yeah, what up, Cody? Yeah, man, cool folks, man. Hell
I'm
yeah.
on Katie Kane's podcast.
Yeah, yeah, man. I got, yeah, do some music with that girl too sometime.
That's right. That's right. She's going to karaoke right now. She's
Tight.
about to become a superstar.
Very cool, man. Yeah, I got my studio is mobile now. I be rocking with Tutlo and Rolo and Dash down there in Lapway. So I'm just yeah. It feels good to work on stuff I like to do, you know. So
Mm-hmm. Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I feel
Um
there, man.
yeah.
That's why I'll be working on cannabis one way or another until the day I die.
same, dude. I'm always have my hands in it. You know what I mean? Like always. The other thing before we started today, man, you mentioned you may start doing a little bit of work with students for sensible drug policy.
That's
Can you
right.
can you
That's
talk
right.
about that a little bit, man?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been working a long time with MCBA on cannabis policy, but now I'm going back on the board. I've actually been the last few months on the board of Students for Sensible Drug Policy. So you go to ssdp.org, and it was an org that actually trained me when I was in college. And it was kind of wild to see the timeline of how cannabis policy changes, like really like directly impacted me. So I
Yeah,
told you a little bit about I got arrested when I was 16, and that should have made it impossible for me to get financial aid.
yeah,
But I did end up going to the University of Connecticut, and that's where I found Students for Sensible Drug Policy. It's a student-based organization that gets folks that are interested in not just cannabis policy, all drug policy, psychedelic policy, other types of harm reduction,
yeah,
and it's actually become international now. And there's like 15 different countries that have SSDP chapters now.
yeah.
But the main reason they started was this bill that was called the Higher Education Act's Federal Aid Elimination Penalty. That's a
Oh,
really
dude,
long
that's tight.
term. Yeah, that is the law that was denying folks financial aid for a cannabis arrest or conviction or any kind of drug arrest.
Yeah,
And I went to school in 2008. Actually, a little bit later, I got caught in 2000 in my 11th grade, and so I had a bit
yeah.
of a delay because of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But eventually,
I'm gonna tell you my story too when you're done with yours about my charge too, because it lines up with what you're talking about the timing of the policy changes too. So
oh, I love it. I
yeah,
love it. So between 2000 and 2008, that law was changed to say you only got denied financial aid if you were on financial aid when it happened. So anyone that got caught in high school was now able to access
that's
financial
dope.
aid. So that happened around like 2006, I think, or 2005. I forget exactly the date on that one. But by the time I joined SSDP, I didn't know anything about it. And then I
Yeah,
remember researching it and being like, holy shit, like this org, the people that came before me changed the law that made it possible for me to go to UConn. And so I was both like negatively impacted by the war on drugs, but then positively impacted by activism,
yeah,
where somebody changed a little law and it made a big difference for me. But now SSDP as one of the few student groups like in the country on anything really, but that is so robust and has like 250 US chapters. Now with Oregon fully decriminalizing all drug use, right, and creating psychedelic therapies, now the conversation around the full war on drugs is gonna happen like, full force. I didn't expect Oregon to pass, to be honest, but it did.
yeah, dude.
And that's
Yeah,
just like the speed at which drug laws have changed is incredible. I graduated UConn in 2012, and we didn't have any legal cannabis states at that time. And
yeah,
so, like to see that now by 2021, we have not only we have like 15 or whatever legal states, but now we have states fully decriminalizing all drug use
yeah.
is pretty wild.
Hell yeah. Okay, so I've got a bunch of charges in my past, but with my senior year of college at University of
Oh, you're
Idaho, it was February of 2008. I got a felony possession of marijuana charge, and it's like it was my second to last semester, and so it's like I got through that semester, did summer school, and I had to just drag my court dates on and just say, well, I want to see if I can do drug court. Okay, I don't want to do drug court. Now I got to talk to a different attorney. And then it's like after 5 court dates, the prosecutor's like, okay, kid, fuck you, plead guilty or we're going to trial. You know what I mean? And so it was
Yeah.
like, it, I pled guilty, dude. I had to wait until I got that last semester of funding, you know what I mean, in August. And then I pled guilty in September. I got sentenced in October. The judge didn't make me sit my time until after I graduated, which was cool. But I still had to sit 30 days in jail after I graduated college, you know what I mean? And then stick around
Wow.
in Idaho for 2 years on probation after that, and felony probation is no easy task, bro. Like, it's just not. They can show up whenever, however, at home, at work, and just fuck with you, dude. And
Yeah.
it was tough, man. And I used to
Heard
tell my
people say they
PO,
sometimes they just want to serve a little more time and be done
dude,
with it.
yeah, I would have rather that. I would rather done fucking 6 months and had no probation. You know what I mean?
That's
Because
right.
that, yeah, it would just like, fuck, this is whack. And I used to tell my PO in Moscow, I'd say, dude, our relationship is only temporary. I'm gonna get off paper and I'm gonna move to Oregon and I'm gonna grow weed. You know what I mean? And he like you know, he just smirk at like what I'm like, bro, you're never gonna catch me with weed in my system or on my person or in my own. Like, bro, you can keep trying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good, bro. I'm gonna jump through these hoops and get the fuck out of here.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly. Like I
I
want to make sure I get
did,
your body.
bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like it it was weird because 2010 April, I got off probation. I'm like, holy
Mm.
fuck. I went and hit up my homie who lived a few blocks away, and he's like, look, I was so baked, you know what I mean? And then I got the job in Portland the next month and moved to Portland and got my medical card that summer and just kept on rolling, dude. And it just it's weird, you know? Like, I was with my parents. We went to go and visit my kids the weekend before Christmas, and we were in Pendleton. And
Mhm.
I called up a dispensary and ordered some shit over the phone and went and picked it up. And I was like, Mom, 10 years ago, I was just getting off felony probation for possessing this one state over. Now I can go and pick it up, order it over the phone and grab it at a store. You know what I
Curb
mean?
sad.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And she just kind of smirks too because, you know, she's a boomer, but it just still, it's like, man, the world changed because of some of the things that we did. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. No, it's very like eye-opening, right? That like after once you start to really see it, then you want to keep doing more, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, oh, we got to make bigger moves and figure out what are we gonna do, and
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
so that I was, an activist ever since then.
Yeah, dude. Because I think it was in Oregon, it was like Measure 91. It was like 2011 or 2012. Me and my buddy Jackson and Nate K was his other roommate at the time, the little homie. We made a whole mixtape just about weed to promote that measure. You know what I mean? Like, vote yes on this.
Oh
Here's a
yeah,
bunch of cool weed songs. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
you know, it was super underground. We gave it to the homies and shit, but that measure failed. You know what I mean? And so we really didn't promote it too much after that. I've heard some of those songs and email searches like, oh fuck, I forgot about that. Like, that's cool, man. But we didn't give up, dude. And Rec ended up passing in 2014. So, you know, it just it it's not just us individually, but as a collective, like spreading that word and those vibes and informing people and telling them what's up made them vote yes, man. You
and
know?
I'll say the culture is farther along than the policy, right?
Hell yeah.
And so like there's this very interesting cultural question, right? Because I can go into places that are not involved with the culture, and it is clear that the information is behind like 20 years. And so, like for instance, I can go when I went to the cannabis cultivation facility at the University of Connecticut. Their grows are less sophisticated than many home grows that I've seen. And
Yeah.
so, right, and that was weird to me. Like the lights
Yeah.
were very old lights. It was very small, and it was just like whatever they probably could get approved. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It
And
probably
like,
felt humid in there and shit too. You know what I mean? You're probably like, hey man,
well, it's funny. Like there was a
can you
Vivo
do
sun.
one, put one here and put one right here and get a fan
It
in this
was it
corner.
was just really like as I was talking to the person that was growing, he's like, "Oh, I know we can do it differently," right? Like the
Yeah.
person that was the master, the grad student was like, "Oh, I'm aware that this is not ideal, but this, the professor, he's does it how he needs to do it, right?" And
Yeah.
so the people in decision making are like purposefully or willfully so behind, and so
Yeah.
I have to have this like conversation
Over
in
and
a
over
time
again.
capsule. And like it feels like I have
Yeah.
to have like put myself back 10 years and like try to explain it to somebody back then,
Yeah.
right? Where now I'm like, yo, like the genetic, what is happening right now with genetics, right? And what is possible. it's like just like light years, you know, beyond what you're gonna like just have some random ruderalis that you're gonna test, right? That it's like
Yeah,
not
dude.
even,
Like
it just doesn't make any
spin
sense.
a wheel on a fucking seed bank online, bro, and just run those instead. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And
Like,
so like and the crazy thing is that we just pushed, MCBA was just pushing on the bill to allow research institutions to expand the number of facilities that they're allowed to get seeds and like not content, that's why we created them for digital, but like actual, you know, substrates for them to test and things like that, because they were only allowed to test craft wheat. And so one of the biggest things was they should test what's on the shelves,
yeah,
right? Like if you're a researcher and you're trying to decide, well, whether or not this X, Y, and Z product is going to have X, Y, and Z result, go buy the product that consumers are actually using.
yeah.
It's that,
And
right? But it was like,
they could probably get access to the data bank too for what sells the most or what's the most popular, and then get a cut from the actual guy running that at the facility. Like, hey man, I'm not gonna sell these. I just want to do some fucking scientific tests on it. And that guy would probably be like, hell yeah, son.
right,
We
all
good.
kinds of things. Well, I mean, or they just trade, because what actually happens is that the University of Connecticut programs are funded by these companies,
Yeah,
right? And so it's like, okay, this is where it gets interesting, right? It's like, are these companies like making sure that this program sucks? Because it was like,
yeah,
why, if they're hooking you up and they only gave you that much money, why are you using those lights, right? Like
yeah,
there's no reason for that. And so there's all kinds of shenanigans, because the other unfortunate thing is, as we're making all this progress, it's not all positivity, right? That like the culture folks are the only ones making decisions, right? This is people that own you know, alcohol conglomerates are in the cannabis space, folks that own pharmaceutical companies are in the cannabis space,
yeah,
folks that are just like foreign money and investors are owning folks in the cannabis space. So like how these decisions are made are not like, how do we grow the best? How do we make sure most people get the most positivity from this? Like that's just not what is being discussed,
yeah. I agree. Yeah, man.
unfortunately. So that's why we have to bang on the door and say like, listen,
Yeah,
you
man.
can
Yeah,
upgrade. You
yeah.
can,
Promote the shit that we like and think should go, man. Because it is, dude. Like that's why I like talking to you about shit like this, man. Because I mean, when I see you post stuff, bro, I'm just like, this guy's really about that life, man. He's doing it right now. You know what I mean? Like the work that you're doing is gonna benefit so many other people in the future. You know what I mean? And so
I
it's
certainly hope
righteous,
so.
bro. You know, super
Yeah,
righteous.
I mean, I am seeing it, right? So like when I look at MCBA, we have, and I'm a perfect example now, had folks come from the movement and then get a license, right? So it's not impossible.
Yeah,
Right? It's
yeah,
just hard and unnecessarily difficult, right? Like people, when we bind together, right, and actually group together, can figure it out. And one thing that I was fortunate with MCBA is that like I wasn't really a finance guy at all. I knew how to grow, but I didn't
yeah,
know how to, you know, create a income and loss statement of my grow,
yeah,
right? And so being able to bring in some of those folks that could articulate what we could do in traditional business speak, right? I realized that a lot of the really big problems that hold people back, rich people look at them very differently. So, like, for example, the $2 million in escrow in Connecticut, I thought this is the most outrageous, ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. It's so obviously there to make sure poor people can't get involved, right? And I lost my shit over it, which was valid,
that's
right?
a requirement for a license to have 2 million in escrow.
Correct.
Fucking
Yeah.
Christ, dude. Oh, that's why only 4 people
$5,000
got it, bro.
just to apply, right? And you're almost definitely going to get denied, but
Fucking
you'll lose that
Christ.
25K, right?
Yeah,
So to me, I was like, yeah, never going to happen, right?
yeah,
So, but what I started to learn through people that run businesses is you just have a rich guy sign a piece of paper. That's what that comes down to, right? You have someone that has a lot of money that says, okay, I'm just going to set this aside because I think the value of a license is whatever dollars. You just and you
yeah,
just have them on your license, and that's all that you really need to do to solve that, right?
yeah,
And I was just like, oh, right. So like, because I didn't really have any context for
yeah,
that, right? I saw it as impossible,
yeah,
right? And again, it should never be there. Don't get me wrong, it should never be there. But
yeah,
if I brought on a homie that graduated from UConn School of Business and he's like, yo, you just got to do boom, 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 because that's what they taught us how to do it, how the rich people do it. Now it's a different situation. So now we're able to share that knowledge, right? And
yeah,
say, like, listen, they say X, Y, and Z. But if we get to that point, right, here's how you come over that barrier. and here's how you go over this other barrier and this other barrier, right? Because people
Yeah.
have already done it. And that's where MCBA came in and really showed me how to navigate like what is happening so that at least you get to the finish line, right?
Yeah.
It may not be as easy or as awesome as you wanted it to be, but I think now we're in a space that like, Katie, we got to get you a license, right? Like, let's figure out those barriers and like,
Yeah, because that's
one at
the
a
main
time.
thing, dude. When I was in Oregon, like I did all those numbers and you know what I mean? Like that's what messed me up was because I thought my tribe was gonna go. The
Yeah,
guy who was the controller, yeah. Well,
I know you
he's my bro. The guy who was the controller of the casino and his lead accountant came out to Portland for 2 days and they met with me at the DoubleTree. Jackson came through. Those guys crunched shit on a spreadsheet, you know what I mean? Just asking us because like I presented shit and they're like, well, there's these other things too. And they're like, yep. And then here's the low, medium, high expectations, you know what I mean? And the accountant guy just kept slamming his pen on the table and he's just like, fuck. I'm like, what's up? And he's like, this is like, even with all this shit, even if you get a fucking backhoe tractor and my salary and his salary, everybody still makes money. The tribe still makes money. I'm like, yeah. You know what I mean? And it just,
yeah.
and cause dude, I had met with at least
So
fucking
why
10,
didn't they?
at least 10 different people before that, you know what I mean? And presented them the numbers that I had and shit and couldn't get the budget, you know what I mean? Cause my budget was only 160, bro. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, 160 for a year is gonna come back in fucking December. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
but I mean, I don't think that the numbers on growing cannabis are obvious, right? Like, all things considered, right? And
yeah.
so the tribe, it couldn't have been solely a financial decision,
No,
right? Like,
well, it's political, right? Because those guys are both telling me, well, you need to move back
always.
home and campaign. I'm like, dude, that's never gonna happen. I'm like, you guys have businesses in other states. This can
Right.
be another business in another state. It doesn't have to be under our treaty rights. Like you guys can just fucking give me the loot and I'll cut the fucking check, bro. Like
Yeah.
you guys got y'all because to me, I'm like, you are the top guy and you are the
And
guy
they didn't
underneath the
want the
top guy
risk,
at Enterprise. So
or
what the fuck is the deal? You know what I mean?
they
And
didn't
it
want
just
the risk.
yeah, I don't know, dude. Like and the tribe's getting into hemp now, and we just bought a bunch of property in Joseph, Oregon. So maybe I can get a meeting and present some more numbers based
Saw
on the
that.
location. You know what I mean? And I'll try that, but it's just
But that's
I felt
incredible. I mean, the tribe is growing its land,
yeah, and there was just a couple of millionaires that I met with. I was like, I'm for sure this guy's got 160 to just fucking throw at this. You know what I mean? And it just didn't happen, dude. You know what I mean? And so it just I don't cry around about it, but it's like I stay ready. Like I still got all that game. And so like people are quitting and dropping out
Yeah.
because they don't know what they're doing. And they did throw a bunch of money at it. And shit, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't care if it's production or retail. If I get one of those licenses, I can keep it forever
And I
and
see it
make
as
money, dude. You know what I
liberatory
mean?
force. Like I want to grow in Puerto Rico because I want Puerto Rico to be independent, right? Like there's a lot of political reasons that I want to do it too.
Hell yeah, dude. Fuck yeah.
Because I think it can be the basis for independence, at least a big part of it. And there's lots of things that it affects and grows and helps: healthcare, infrastructure, on and on and on, right? And so tourism, it never ends. And that's why I also think for the tribes as well,
Yeah.
that like, right now the United States is being stupid about this plant, and we can take advantage of that stupidity by not being dumb about it, right? And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I
try
know
to,
it's
yeah, man.
there's a lot of culture, right? And especially in Puerto Rico, all the young people, the biggest problem I have in PR, luckily the older folks in PR are pretty with it because they actually like it as a medicine. But a lot of the young folks have left.
Help your back,
Yeah, lots of things, man, especially after the hurricane. And so we have some folks that are very Catholic and are against it, but most folks are pretty cool with it. And so it's relatively accepted in Puerto Rico. And so I do see it as like when we go into 2021, right? And we have new things, robotics, AI, crypto, right? There's going to be some really big things that change how we do things. Cannabis is going to be one of those. And it's not just cannabis, it's also going to be drugs as a whole. We're going to see psychedelics come into mental health services in ways that we haven't before, right? Psilocybin is becoming more accepted. And so cannabis and like drug policy and being able to use experiences as mental health treatment is going to be like
Yeah, dude, I
unbelievably
agree. I
impactful.
gave a kid a fucking lift to his ketamine treatment a couple weeks ago, and
Oh, it's crazy.
I think he was a vet, like a veteran, you know what I mean,
Yeah,
and had PTSD, and he said he moved out here from Chicago just so he could live here and get those treatments because they didn't have it in Illinois.
right.
I was like,
And now,
fucking
and there's
cool,
going to be
man.
psilocybin therapy as well,
Yeah.
in Oregon.
It,
So it's when we think about healthcare as like an industry, right, and like how much money and just impact on people's lives healthcare is, to think about we're about to go through a revolution of healthcare,
hell
right?
yeah.
The different ways. You think about how much money we spend on like psychiatric medicine, and like there's just like so many different things that now we won't be torturing people with these zombification drugs, right? We're going
Yeah.
to actually start to be able to work through some of these problems and give
Yeah,
people,
man.
even younger people, the ability to deal with anger and emotions and sadness in ways that don't involve self-destructive.
Yeah, dude, that's the fucking best way to word it too, Jason, because that's what that's what the problem with it. You know what I mean? That's what kids are doing. It's like, yo, man, there's ways to not do that.
Right,
You
right.
know, like you
And
and
the things
man,
that it
I gotta
does,
say, shout out to Deacon Jones, Ricky Jones, because he's got that healing through hip hop program. I'm pretty sure he's close to being actually open and receiving
mm,
kids who are in treatment programs to come to his
nice.
program and create music and stuff and express themselves in healthy therapeutic ways, and
Mhm.
then have some art to show afterwards. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
yeah, that's
And that's
another. It's
where,
you know, it's not chemically based, you know, like that because it's for kids, and I understand that. But it is. It's presenting an alternative to self destruction, which I think is dope. You know?
and I think as we start to allow these substances to become more acceptable part of progressing as a human, right? We're going to see the idea of going on vision quests and very specific times in your life to be able to deal with certain transitions and like all of that, that I think in the past our cultures were smart enough to embrace,
Yeah.
where now we're coming full circle again. And just like the information revolution has like dramatically changed how we interact as people, the idea that now, if and when we are dealing with a difficult situation, that a psychedelic experience with friends and family could be the way that we address that is going to radically change family. It's going to radically change how humans are able to interact with each other, how we exist, right? Because like there's so much time now that people spend under the influence of, pharmaceutical medication, that we're losing quality people productive time, right? Like there are
Yeah.
smart people out there that are being drugged because as a society we don't know how to handle them, or they just don't fit in the traditional mold. So people get
Yeah.
scared about it, right? So like it's going to unleash the amount of human potential, right, that we've been
Yeah.
subduing, that I really am really excited to be in the space of drugs and drug policy as this happens to society, right?
Yeah.
Because like we're going to be able to provide healing, growth, and going beyond just like, this was like this old book I read, Beyond Okay, right? So like there's the baseline of like I'm not hurting,
Yeah.
right? But at a certain point, we're going to try to be a little better than that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm actually feeling phenomenal today,
Yeah. Fucking
because
great, man.
my
Yeah.
cannabis, cocktail I had this morning with my coffee got me feeling great. I think I'm going to be twice as productive today,
Yeah.
right? And like that's the world we're going into. That's going to be a very exciting world when we start to think about, how we can maximize our experiences with these different substances,
Yeah.
how it plays into, it's one thing to have the Library of Alexandria in your pocket, right? But as folks be able to fully understand how to even use their mind, and then also have that sort of information, like, the possibilities there are quite tremendous of
Yeah.
what humanity could do. Let alone, I'll just leave this as the last one for like super future thought, right? It's
Okay.
like once we can connect our brains to the internet, right, which is not too far off,
Yeah.
who and how do you think the first internet linked psychedelic experience is going to play out, right? Like what
Yeah.
does my brain do when I can access the internet, while I'm also undergoing a psychedelic experience, right?
Yeah,
That
and
is
can I
going to
share
be
like what can I
bananas.
record this experience through my
Yeah,
eyeballs
right.
and share it with others? You know, can I pass them the link? Because I have homies who are afraid to take acid with me, and I'm just like, bro, you'll be okay. You
Yeah,
know,
you'll be
and
okay. It's intimidating.
yeah,
Like, you should be a little intimidated by it, right? Because
yeah,
it's part of it is losing a little bit of control. But I think it's, just like going whitewater rafting or something, you know. It's like
and it's like if I could send them a link of it, you know, that they could just do in their browser before they did. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll try it.
right, right.
Yeah, it looks cool, you know.
That's all right. I can deal with
Yeah,
that. It's kind of dope. It's got good
yeah,
music, you know.
yeah, dude. And I watched The Mandalorian on Monday. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Tripping, and it just dope show. But dude, just the storyboard art at the end of the show while the credits are rolling. That
you
was when
probably
my eyes
lost
were
for
just
like
glued to the
years
TV.
of your life in that.
Oh man, yeah, it would just. I don't know. So it's cheap thrills, man. I'm easy to please, I guess. You know what I mean? And I just dig looking at stuff in that perspective sometimes. So
But the crazy to me is that like in order to get there, right? Like we have to decrim weed first, right?
yeah,
Like it's just that's why this to me is just like such a weird disconnect between folks that like their only experience with drugs or drug policy is like they saw it in movies,
yeah,
right? Versus folks that are like in it and are like, nah, I can cure your PTSD from Vietnam tomorrow for you,
yeah, man.
right? And so it's you know the competency around substances and our intellect and our minds and soul and all of that, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a skill set that's about to become super super important.
Yeah. If there's a license too, man, to give people like if I don't have to be a doctor and I can just get it in that, like, bro, I'll go to that school because I do, man. There's just been a lot of times where I had to be that fucking Jedi master home. It's like, bro, we're okay. We just
Yeah,
ate something. It's
yeah,
gonna pass. I know it feels kind of scary right now, but we're just watching a movie, man. We're just sitting on the couch watching a movie. If you want to smoke, we can go smoke. All right,
yeah.
yeah, let's do that, man.
Oh,
You know,
and
like, okay, cool.
that skill set, so the ability to coach people through a difficult experience, right, is like it needs to be trained, it needs to be developed. It's not
Yeah.
something that just anybody can do. And it is an emotional intelligence that is like hard to describe. But I remember, so through SSDP, who does have a
Mhm.
psychedelic pipeline, it is for traditional like students. I don't want to say traditional students, it should be people in schools.
Yeah.
But I think you can actually get in touch with folks if you're interested. But through MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies,
Okay.
and Rick Doblin. And so they're doing all kinds of very intense, serious clinical trials.
Dope.
But
You
it
can
was
sign up for
through,
those?
I probably,
Yeah.
I don't know the details on that.
Well,
That's
because I
Matt.
don't want to be experimented on, but if it's fucking acid, bro, I want to try what you guys are
MDMA,
making.
LSD, and psilocybin, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, and ketamine. No, they did some of the ketamine trials originally also. So, I mean, they probably do whatever they'll get funded for, to be
Yeah.
honest. But
Right.
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, MAPS.
Right.
Rick Doblin is the dude there. But he has the Zendo project, which would train people to be at festivals and things that if someone's having a difficult experience, you could go there and have a calm environment, right? And
Yeah.
that difficult experiences are not necessarily bad experiences, that we may have some things we need to work through and it's not easy to work through them, but in the end are very positive for
Yeah.
folks. And if you've ever had a psychedelic experience and you had recently lost a loved one, it can be an incredibly painful experience, but you may come out the other side of that experience feeling more at ease with
Yeah.
being able to move forward.
Yeah, that's what
And
I try
so,
to, cause yeah, I try to tell the bros that too. It's like, man, I have grief and fucking rage over certain shit that's happened, but like, dude, after I take that and I'm back on Earth, like I can see the way things work a little bit better and understand things a little bit better and not be so pissed off about it. You know what I mean? And be able to, it's like
it's catharsis at such a deep level, right? That like it's almost impossible to explain unless the person has actually experienced it, right? Because I remember my
yeah, it
first,
is. It's tough. I'm like, I know
yeah,
you fucking saw some movies or something, that made it look like this, but it's
right. It's not, and for me, the so my first experience was with mushrooms, the psilocybin, and it's a kind of too much, but the visual effects were intense and like difficult for a while to deal with. But it was really the psychological that eventually takes over everything
yeah.
else.
Yep.
Where it doesn't even matter what I'm seeing; it's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I genuinely thought I died during the experience, right? And like
Yeah.
had all kinds of thoughts
Yeah.
about that, and like I'm an
Yeah.
atheist,
We're
like
all gonna die. We're all going to
right,
die. I remember realizing that on mushrooms before and
yeah,
it fucking crushing me. You know what I mean?
exactly.
It was
And
hard to deal with.
it was hard. It was hard, right? Like
Yeah, man.
it was painful emotions in my
Yeah.
mind that were happening, and I didn't think I was gonna get better at first, right? I was like, oh, I'm just gonna be in this
I'm
phase
stuck.
forever, right?
Yeah.
Stuck here forever. I had this whole thing of like, my parents can be really disappointed for me being someone that
I'm a
overdosed on
fucking
mushrooms.
burnout now.
Yeah,
Jason's
yeah.
a
And it's just
burnout.
like, oh my God, like I'm gonna be the first person to die on mushrooms because right? And it's just like, oh, this is so disappointing. Like I was
Yeah.
supposed to be such a smart kid and like really like processed all of this. But after a while did say, okay, well now there's nothing I can do. I can't bring myself back to life now. I'm dead. And
I
so I
had
need
that shit.
to just go figure out what is the next chapter. Right. I was like, I really like did come to terms with being dead and like, okay, I'm an atheist, but like, I want to see, is there a fucking God or not? Like, like what is there 10 of them? Is there 0? Is it a spaghetti monster? Like, let's do this. Right. So I remember going to my brother towards the end of my trip, like, I'm ready. Right. And he's like, you're ready? I was like, yes, let's go. He's like, where do you want to go? And I was like, I'm go. Like, I don't even know where it is. But he's like, you want to go home? Sure. I was like, all right, cool. Right. So we start going home and I'm like, ready. Like, all right. Like, this looks a lot like where I grew up, but okay, like, let's see where this takes me. And it was just such a wild ride of like, I remember saying like, thank you, Jules, my brother's Julian. Like, thank you. This must gotta be hard for you, right? To be taking your dead brother to his final resting place. Right. And he's like, it's fine, Jay. Don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
no, I'm sure, you'll thank me later. And it
That's
was
funny,
just
dude.
so wild, man, like going back and really thinking that like all the stuff I was seeing, because it was like the highway, the lights were just like, and I was like, wow, man, this is kind of what I thought the trip to, because I really did think if it was like a negative heaven, hell, I was going to whatever the negative one was, right? Like I was not, I wasn't going to whoever did all the things correct were going, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm ready, let's do this, right? But it was just like also super stoked that my brother was willing to like go that journey.
Got my bro with me at least now. Yeah.
And then he brought me home and I passed out on my bed. I passed in and out. And then when I got up in the morning, it took a few days to come like back to like not feeling like I needed my own time for a while, right? Because the first one, the recovery time, that was I needed a while there before I really was like,
kind of quiet for a while, man.
yeah,
I'm just thinking
exactly.
about shit,
for like 3 days, I'm just like, huh.
Yeah.
Thinking about everything. But I noticed ever after that, my like explosive rage problems like were subdued a bit. Like it didn't happen as much, like
that's I tried to tell Crown Royal when he was on it's like, bro, it's not like it cured me of that shit, but bro, I just it doesn't well up so fast and so explosive. It's like, nah, I feel like it might get there, so I'm gonna go and do something else, or
exactly. Like it didn't eliminate it completely. I still have my moments, but my ability to like be present and handle it, right? Like, oh, this is just not what I need right now. And so we're gonna hold on to that and express it later. Right? Like
fuck
that. And it changed my life, man. I
fuck, man, this is the best because what you and I talking about this shit, like I've been to a shit ton of counseling, not just for drugs and alcohol in my youth, bro. You know what I mean? Like I got fucking mental health issues too, but it's like I feel okay now, and I feel like talking to friends like this about it and having those experiences, it's like, bro, it fucking fuck the doctor, fuck, you know what I mean? Like and I'm not hating it because there were some cool counselors that really, helped me out.
Different strokes for different folks. And I think I've actually met counselors that I feel like would be with me on this, where like they knew, because I was very honest with all of my therapists of what I did. You know what I mean? Obviously, I'm a cannabis activist, so it wasn't like I was hiding any of it.
Yeah.
But, and I had some that were more pharma types and other ones that were just more like, let's just talk through everything. And those folks, I think they got it.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. I agree, man. Like
because that's going to become a whole new field of psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be psychedelic assisted psychotherapy.
Yeah. And that, man, one time I came back from Portland to visit for like Christmas or something. And I was going to breakfast with my mom and my sister downtown, like Main Street Grill or some shit. And they have it's like a drug and alcohol counseling place right there in the parking lot in the little strip mall by the theater, by Liberty Theater. And we were just pulling up to park, and next to us was one of my old counselors from when I was in high school that was from Nimipu Health, and now she worked at that place. And
Huh?
her name was Bev. Fuck, I can't remember her last name, but she was cool, man. And I just remember telling her about my goal to, it's like, man, I'm trying to just get the fuck out of here and get to Portland so I can do music. And it's like I was 2 years past that goal and just coming back to visit my family, you know what I mean? And so when I saw her, it's like I just gave her a hug and told her what I did, and she was just happy, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I made it, you know? And it was
Yeah.
cool. She was happy, so it was cool.
Yeah, it's a wild world, man. Like you just said, they had the psychedelic spot next to the strip mall, right? It's just like now strip malls are over, but psychedelics have a longer, better future than strip malls do.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude. Yeah.
It's for the
And
better.
yeah, there's lots of opportunity for healing, man, under the right setting, So I hope folks take advantage and don't just go ape shit. Don't eat a fucking whole eighth, man. You know what I mean? Like,
That's what I did the first time, man.
yeah, I did.
Chased it with a
Me
Mike's Hard
too, bro.
Lemonade.
Yeah, it's
That's
fuck.
horrible.
Yeah, one or 1.5 grams is
Yeah.
optimum. If a grown man 200 pounds, man, that's fine.
I went
That'd
with
be
2-0.
okay.
That's what I tell folks for the first time. 2-0,
Yeah,
2 grams. So
yeah.
you'll almost definitely feel it, but it hopefully won't like blast
Freak
off.
out. Yeah,
Yeah.
freaking out isn't fun.
Yeah. That's it. But I don't know, like, I don't want to deny others the experience that I was able
Yeah,
to have, right? Because
yeah,
like there's the whole like, you don't know the line until you cross it, right? And
yeah,
so like that experience of like completely losing control, it's not your first time, I'll say. You
yeah,
shouldn't do it your first time. But
yeah,
I think sometime in your early, maybe before you're 30,
yeah.
you should take a full eighth.
Okay. Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. And healthy coping technique for me that I always use was I just lay on my bed and put a towel over my face, man. And because sometimes I could just not stop laughing, like at all. Like I can't stop, and I need to breathe. My stomach hurts, you know what I mean? So I'd go in my room and just put a towel on my face and I can breathe. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
homie's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I'm trying to mellow out, man. You know what I mean? Like 5 minutes. Okay, cool. Take it off. Go back out in the living room. I'm cool. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I was feeling like my head was gonna float away. And
Yeah.
so like I had to keep catching it, right? Like, and then there was one point I was outside having a cigarette, right? And like I don't know what it was, but I went and I was just like, oh my God, I forgot. Like I forgot to like hold it on. Right. And so
Yeah.
really like I thought, well, float away. Like I fucked up. Like, oh well, we're floating now.
Yeah.
And at first it was nervous, and I would just say, "Oh, that's all right."
Yeah. Be okay, man. We'll be okay.
So that's why I'm just like, it's gonna be such a wild future. Like we're
Yeah.
going into this weird roaring 20s with like stock markets don't make any sense. Everybody's making money. We're just printing trillions and trillions of dollars.
Yeah, dude.
Like
Yeah.
Bitcoin's gonna be worth more than gold. Like it's just like
Keep some
everything.
weed seeds, Jason, and some bullets, bro. You know what I
I
mean?
know. So
Stay
I'm
ready,
just saying.
man.
Now's the
Yeah.
time to learn some of these other things that were fringe, even just a year ago, that are now about to be pillars
Yeah.
of how society moves forward.
Fucking A, man. Dude, it's a fucking super dope interview so far, dude. I know I asked you this question last time, but I gotta ask it again. Just as it's cookie cutter question. I gotta ask everybody, what's your best move on the path to where you are right now?
My best move that I made to get here?
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting. Man, the best move. I mean, I got a lot of important moves, I would say. So, like, I still think one of the best was joining MCBA to do the model bill.
Okay.
That was a different goal or set of goals. Where now I do think making the move to just get the license in Puerto Rico and saying to hell with the states was
Yeah.
also like one of the best things I ever did.
Yeah.
Because
Okay. I still want to put on it. I still want to put an app too. If you're flying,
sure,
doing
yeah.
jobs for cultivators.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So,
Yeah.
well, that's the thing, right? And so the moment I was having a bit of a struggle of like, I'm spending all this time getting other people rich,
Yeah.
right? And like, I love my work, you know what I mean? It's very important, and it's going to help people that I don't even know and all of that, sure. But throughout organizing and activism, and specifically with MCBA, the reality that our current society empowers businesses. And so if we want to build power, we cannot ignore that part of society, right? And so as I was seeing so many activists continuously run up against the money problem, right? Where it's like, all right, we want to do all this stuff. In order to do that, it takes money, it takes money, it takes money. And so people had to like work their day jobs and then try to pour money into activists. Didn't make sense, right? But then I actually met somebody, Kayvon Kalabari, who is a fantastic entrepreneur. He was in the cannabis industry for a long time, but he left because he was disgusted with it. So, you know, tells you what kind of guy he is. But while he was there, the way he went about starting businesses and helping people, and he took a like 5% stake in a lot of businesses, and he would write the applications for people. Yeah. And so like it was really smart, you know, how he did it. But I saw how it allowed him to be the activist he really wanted to be, right? Because he became the source of the money. First of all, that's actually how I met him. But he was able to just move so many more chess pieces all the time because of how he did not need money from anybody else. And he was able to network with other people that had money and put people that didn't have money into positions so that they could move the chessboard forward. And so I saw that and was like, that's what we need to do in Puerto Rico, right? I was like, I need to be coming with the resources, pulling these kind of folks there, and then being able to say, not how am I going to demand that the state helps my people, right? But like, I don't want to ask anybody for permission. I want to just do it, right? And have people stop me. And that is the big difference, I think, between like traditional activism and like transitioning to the business community. And, you know, part of it I do think is because I grew up operating in the black market. The idea that I want to fund my own shit all the time is like obvious to me, right? Like a lot of other people don't do that, right? And so like, they don't think, for instance, like, oh, if I need to come up with $10,000, well, that's X flips that I need to make, right? In order to get, not like this is impossibility. So I could tell I had a different way of looking, and like, I wasn't as anti-business as a lot of the other like lefty, you know, progressive people that I was organizing with, right? And so but I could tell though that they were losing. I was losing, we were losing, right? Like the companies, the businesses, we were getting a few crumbs and they would win the lion's share, right? And so the first best thing I did was we got to write our own laws. And then I was like, well, I'm writing all of these laws to allow some people to start businesses, but if I pass this law, none of my people are going to be ready to take advantage of this law, right? And that's when I was like, I need to be a business owner, right? And like, I'm getting ahead of myself with legalizing something that I can't take advantage of. So then it became, how are we going to do it? And it was Puerto Rico, right? And so Puerto Rico just wrapped so many things that I wanted to do with my life into one beautiful space. And not only, I don't want to invest that level of myself, of my future, in a place like Connecticut, which is quite frankly, very high percentage white folks that I'm going to be battling them to be accepted in this space. I don't want to do that, right? I want to spend my short time on this earth liberating Puerto Rico, and I should be investing my time, blood, sweat, and tears on the land there, right? And it was more opportunity there. So I think first one was joining NCBA to like start writing my own laws and like stop looking at laws as something that like somebody else does. But then the most recent one was scrapping together the money, whatever it took to put in that application. I actually thought we were going to get denied at first. I was like, it's not going to be that easy, right? That we just go through it, and then it worked.
Tight, dude. Well, yeah, dude, your shit probably looked really complete because you've been playing that game for a really long time. You know? I bet a whole bunch of those other apps had fucking blank spots or fucking NA on there or something, you know?
And my sister is the co-owner, who's actually 51% owner. She grew up in Puerto Rico. So like it's a family business on top of it. So like we laid it on pretty thick, and it fucking worked. But it was like, I honestly like didn't believe it at first, right? I was like, there's no way that actually we did it. But you know, we got land now, and I need to go start sending shipping containers, and I'm going on January 19th to literally plant a flag in the land.
Sick, dude. Sick. Super tight, bro. Super tight. Okay, so other side of the question, what do you feel has been your biggest mistake on the path to where you are right now?
Oh, man. So what has been my biggest mistake? I think there have been many times where I could have been more sensitive to people's emotions that I think would have kept more relationships and friendships intact now that I am here. So I was very focused on
I'd burn
result.
some bridges because I don't give a
Yeah,
fuck. You know what I mean?
yeah, right. And so like I think, like if I had to think, because I don't necessarily regret those things because I felt at the time was necessary,
Yeah.
right? And so it, the end result of where I am today is where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And it's unclear if I would have been softer on folks, would those problems have been addressed? I don't know. But that being said, I definitely have noticed the trend, right? That I can focus a lot on results, on getting things done, on moving quickly. And I don't spend enough time sort of bringing other people with me, right? I'll say. And so it's like folks that are very already kind of personally very strong, right? Those folks we get along well, we can move it, right?
Yeah.
Folks that are a bit insecure about their place in either my organization or in a broader movement.
Yeah. It's like that with art sometimes too, man. If we're trying to do a group song or project, it's like, bro, just show up and write something down, bro. Like,
And so this is the thing, right?
yeah.
Like people will ask me, well, what do I do? And I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Do you have to express yourself, right? Like I can't tell you how to excel at being yourself.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm
and,
not your boss, but I want your help. You know what I mean?
and
Yeah.
this is the thing though, right? Is that in the end, in order to bring the amount of power needed to really push back on the institutional players, it has to be so many of us pushing in the same direction at the same time with a unified voice, right? And
Yeah.
so that the fact that I don't have the patience for it is hurting my ability to get us to that level, right? Like I think as an individual, I know how to produce products, right? Produce policies, produce events, produce media, whatever it may be, but that's not going to win in the end, right? Like even if I have the best, I can grow the best cannabis in the world, it will make me some money, but it's not going to build a movement. And
Yeah.
so in order to actually like have a space in cannabis for us, it's going to take a cultural shift. It's going to take a movement to do that. And it's going to take us being able to perpetually lift each other up a lot,
Yeah.
like over and over and over again. And so that people start to establish enough power to be able to make cool moves. And I've been very like, either get it done or get out of my way.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah. Fuck with or fuck off, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
but what ends up happening there, right, is that like we can't build bigger structures, right? And so one thing I'm noticing is that as we start to build these smaller organizations, what happens in the corporate world are mergers and acquisitions, right? And so now we have bigger and bigger entities every day and they swallow the smaller ones, right? It's fucking survival of the fittest on an economic level. So as people of color, whether Jason Ortiz is effective is almost irrelevant as to whether or not the community of color can effectively move.
Yeah.
Right. And so we can have 10 very effective people, but we need 1,000 that can be an orchestra, right? Like we don't need 10,000 single guitar players that know how to play one song very well, right? Like we need the whole robust thing.
Yeah.
And so I neglected those other parts of it. I didn't effectively train myself on how to train other people because I knew instinctually that if you ask someone to do something they don't know how to do, they will get frustrated and they'll be resentful, right? And so, for instance, when it comes to organizations, the position of being a committee chair is actually a very odd space that most people are never trained on how to do it or what to do with it or whatever. And I was lucky enough I had some experience because of university and stuff like that. But I noticed that's where people faltered the most. And it was so important for an organization, but I was the type that was like, fuck it, I'll just run it myself. And that is not how, it's how
Just
we
sign
get
it
to,
right here, man. Just fucking sign it. It's done.
right, yeah. And it's
Well, I
like,
like working with Jason. He makes it real easy.
right, exactly. But then things like the MORE Act pop up, right? And now I personally at the moment didn't have a lot of time to like handle everything. And so chaos ensued, right? Because it was like I personally didn't exactly know how I wanted to approach that particular bill. I had just gotten done with the elections. It was just like, I honestly don't even fucking care, right? Like I was just so exhausted
Yeah.
at that point. And so it became abundantly clear why Jason just doing everything is not building a strong foundation,
Yeah.
right? And folks were sort of like, I'll just do whatever everybody else says we should do, right? And it's like, that's not at all what I need you to do right now, right? Like I need other folks I need someone to do the press release. I need someone to make these calls. I need someone else to right? But I need you all to do it, without having to be told, right? Because it's your positions. And so in those moments, so I can't tell that person, but you're the chair of the committee, just do it.
Yeah.
Because they never knew how to do it to begin with. Right. Yeah. And I think that was my biggest mistake that I've made in this position, is not properly training people like as I went along, because I spent so much time trying to take advantage of external opportunities, right? Like media interviews or fundraising opportunities or organizing events, right? And like doing these things that the world wanted to see of MCBA, but the internal infrastructure didn't get properly built out to match the scale of what I was trying to get MCBA to be, right? Like I was trying to elevate, and I think I did elevate us, but I didn't also put the support needed to like actually be that in there.
No
And
doubt.
so that I felt like towards the end of the year started to like really be difficult for us to really like handle the weight of all the opportunities that I think I was able to line up for us. Right? It was almost like we had to go back and say, no, we can't do that. We would love to do that, but we just like physically
kind of thin. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think, looking back, that's a matter of trainings and support mechanisms for people needed to be built in from the beginning. Knowing that I'm not that good at it, find somebody else to be the head of whatever, like the director of emotional check-ins or whatever is needed, that somebody that likes to do that, someone that is more of like a, therapist person or whatever. And so, yeah, I would say the softer side,
Okay.
training people, training. Anytime we can train each other, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, man. More Jedi, less Sith, man.
Yeah. Although, I got a little bit of dark side in me. I won't be.
Goddamn right. Yeah, gray Jedi, man. Yeah.
Revan, brother.
Yeah,
right?
hell yeah, man. I want to see that movie, goddamn.
Because there was also, I'll give you a funny one that happened over this time too, though, is like when the police thing was happening, I did have to be very aggressive with some white corporate owners, right? Of like, y'all have a responsibility to invest in solving this problem now. Right. And so there were definitely moments that I also felt like, okay, like I used the dark side in that meeting. Right. But like I had to do it. Like it had to be done. Like somebody, I'm glad it was me. Right. And coming out against the police really strongly also felt like that was the one moment I feel like I used my seat to like, I want to influence how this is going to go down as Jason Ortiz, and we're talking about the cops, right? And that was the moment where I came out. Our entire statement was how to properly support the protests, right? Cool, and so like we had to have a long debate internally, like, how are we phrasing this? What is going on? What are we doing? There were folks that had police in there.
I'm sure you were the dark side of that interview too, bro. You know what I mean?
And like that was the one where
everybody was like, "What the fuck, Jay?" It was like, "Yo,"
Yeah.
I bet. I can only imagine, man.
I wasn't the only one, I'll say, right? But there was definitely concern about us overreaching, right? And alienating potential allies and blah, 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 right? But
how is this going to affect our business relationships, Jason?
Yeah. And it was one of those times where like, there are times as pres where I have had to be like, all right, I'm not going to fight this fight because I just don't want that backlash for that particular thing. But the police thing, I was like, nah, fam, like we're going on record, right? I want to make sure that our statement comes out first and is strong. Cause I knew not only the white folks in the industry, but the black and brown folks in the industry were waiting to see what we said. Right. Like this is a real moment of like moral tension, right? Where leadership is super important in this particular moment, that we need folks to clarify and either support each other or whatever, right? But like silence is like the worst option. And so I knew that what we said would ripple out, right? Because it would either give the green light to all of the other orgs to really throw down as much as possible, or they're going to feel like they're at odds with us and we're splitting the black and brown voice, right? And so it's like, well, we're going to show them what the farthest left of this conversation looks like, and they can go to the middle from there, because that's where I'm going. And most people, you know, on the board were like, hey, man, if you feel this strongly about this, like, go for it, write it, you know? And I did.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Way to go. Way to go. Dude, we're getting close to 2 hours now, bro. Is there man. So
we charge you double. No.
Yeah, well, no, if there's any other ideas or concepts you want to promote, like we already talked about that a lot with psychedelics and everything, you know what I mean? So that's just a cookie cutter question I throw in at the end, is what sort of ideas or concepts would you like to promote for the future? But if I feel like you already answered that, if you want to just share your social media links, and then like, dude, yeah, is it rec in Puerto Rico too? Like, if folks take a trip down there next winter, can they grab your stuff on the shelf or something? Or is it like, you know, like what's
Puerto Rico has reciprocity.
So if you got a card out here or an AZ card and you show up there, you can go to the store even?
The dispensary, yep.
Yeah,
you have to go through this little like cool, telemedicine.
Shout out to Puerto Rico, bro.
Yeah, that's another reason. I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, you have to go through this little tele thing where you have to get verified, whatever. But yes, basically go through a small process. You can buy at the dispensary.
Tight. And you could probably like order online, say, hey man, here's my card, here's my I'm gonna be down there next week.
Yeah.
Can you save me an eighth of that and an eighth of that, and I'm gonna be there on Friday, man? You know what I mean? Like, fuck.
Exactly.
Tight.
Yes, I mean, Puerto Rico has the full internet, you know, and so like anything you can do here when it comes to internet or apps, you can do down there. And so hopefully, yeah, if you go down next December, right, like it's possible you'll be able to get some TopFlor. That's the name of our brand.
Dude, and like, it's, how do you spell that?
FLOR.
Okay.
So flor is
like
Spanish for flower.
Flower, yeah. Dude, that's tight.
So it's a
like
Spanglish name actually, and our logo is a little stem that's a T and then an F with a little leaf on it.
Dope.
I'll show you.
Yeah, man, fucking sick, dude. That's awesome, Jason.
Oh man, the name was such a pain in the ass. That was one of the things that we're just like, just fucking put something on the paper, because we gotta get this happen. But so you know, I think the next thing is, you know, this 2021 is going to be like the next revolutionary time. Is a lot going on. So look into cannabis as medicine, how it's going to radically change healthcare. Look into your crypto situations, look into robotics, right? Like all these things play well with each other. And I look forward to giving Katie a tour of our AI informed cultivation facility.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
Come down and check it out, and Cody can show you around. It's going to be good.
Man.
And I think what we're going to focus on, we'll see though, I have some ideas on edibles, but I want to make the cannabis strain that is as close to the limitless pill as humanly possible. So I'm a sativa guy. I'm trying to figure out how we get like that feeling you get when you get your favorite sativa. I want to master that, man.
Bro, yeah, that was a cool film too, dude. And there's certain strains that make you feel like that, and it's like you remember it, and then it's like, fuck, I wish I had a cut of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the first strains I tried like that was Red Dragon. I don't know if you ever had any Red Dragon. Barney's Farm sells some dope genetics of Red Dragon, but it's one of those things that like if you're not a big sativa fan, you get a bit of a paranoia effect. But for me, it was like, man, I'm ready to write a manifesto. I'm going to build this whole website. I'm going to edit this entire video. Because for me, it's like, you know, I use it to do my best work, you know? So it's like some people are like, oh, I can't use that. I got to do stuff. I'm like, no, I got to do my best art. I need it.
I wrote a lot of good songs smoking on Synax, Jason.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. Oh, there's just so many good stuff. Bruce Banner, and any kind of like Bruce Banner is another one of my faves. But
hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. And then can people follow you online? It's still mcba.org.
It's mcba.org for the Facebook. It's minoritycannabis.org for the website. Jason J Ortiz / Jason J Ortiz on Facebook. And I really use Facebook the most. I don't Twitter as much, but I am shifting over to starting to learn more about YouTube and how to make YouTube videos.
Hell yeah.
I'll say that's the other thing, man. YouTube is the fucking future.
Yeah.
2 billion people.
What about IG? Are you on IG?
I am. It's I don't know if I remember my Instagram, but I am on there.
Okay, yeah, just search it, man. It's the Puerto Rican guy with the glasses, man. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of good food on there.
Yeah, dude, because that's another reason I want to visit down there too. I seen some of those pics. I'm like, fuck, that
Actually,
shit
it's
looks
Jason J.
fire. It's like some
Ortiz.
beans on top of a scoop of rice and shit. I'm like, fuck, that looks legit, man.
Hey, and the farm that we're growing on it already has all these other fruits on it also. And so
Tight.
like, dude, I'm so excited to be able to grow the fruit and turn it into edibles.
Yeah, you could do dried fruit, spray with some oil. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm thinking a little bit more luxurious than some dried fruits, my friend. But
yeah, hell yeah.
but
Well,
yeah,
I'm
I'm
just thinking
excited.
wholesomeness, man. You know, like it's less
Well, actually,
processed.
like, and you'll appreciate this too, right? But I want to have culturally competent edibles, actually, because especially when we're talking with older folks, right? Like, my grandma's Puerto Rican. She knows what a brownie is, but she doesn't like eat brownies really, you know? And
Yeah,
so being able to give her candy or food that is in her native food, she's much more likely to embrace it and try
no
it,
doubt, no
right? And
doubt.
so I think we have the whitewashing of like what edibles can be of just chocolate bars and cookies, right? Like we got a whole nother world of what we could possibly be doing. And I think it's not just like financial, obviously it's gonna be great. Like me and you will love to have our deliciousness, but it's about encouraging and empowering our seniors to take advantage of the health benefits,
Yeah,
right? Like they can live longer lives if we
yeah,
do a better job helping them.
yeah, and they don't have to just you do it as a desperation when they're sick or when they're hurting or
Right,
something either. It's like, nah,
right.
man, try you ain't doing shit tonight, but watching a movie. Try this out. I'm gonna make you some fucking soup, or try
Yeah,
this. Yeah,
at bare minimum appetite, right? Like, so there's just like, my grandma is, I only have one left actually, and one grandpa, but I want to make sure she's eating and going to sleep.
yeah,
It's like she's not like currently like super sick,
yeah,
but let's help before we get to that point.
yeah, man.
Right? And
Proactive,
like if it can make
proactive.
folks just have a higher quality of life, and again, I think the difference between trying to bring it over in a form that she doesn't know, or if I brought some flan, right? Like, hey,
Yeah,
grandma, I made this flan for you myself, right? Like she'll eat it, she'll try it, right? And
yeah.
we'll enjoy it. So I think there's a tremendous amount of like intergenerational learning that we have to be able to do. And I'm not the best. Like I get really frustrated with my boomer family, right? That like
Yeah,
I just
same,
like don't have
bro.
time to
Same.
talk to
I'm
you
just,
people about this. It's so
yeah,
hard.
yeah.
But I think that's our challenge as, relatively tech savvy
Yeah.
millennials and Gen Zers, right? That we have to
Yeah. It's like as
help
soon
with
as I pull out a jar or a turkey bag, everybody in the room gets scared. And I'm just
love,
like,
right?
I was
But
trying
I
to give
think
you guys
that's
something to take home. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, man. Like, sorry.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because like my sister, who is actually works in like an actual like blood lab, like she's an actual scientist. We had to have the conversation, right? Because she's like, "Grandma, I just want to like, exactly what we're talking about, right? Like Jason
Yeah.
is coming to build a cannabis facility, like
Yeah.
weed, marijuana, pasto, what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and she was like, "Oh no, I know, I get it, I know what's happening."
That's cool, man.
But we had to have that moment where it's like, no, 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 no. Like, and
Yeah.
Jason's not talking like a little bit, right?
No, yeah.
Like a
A
lot of
lot.
it. So, but she was very open to it. She, of course, had kind of already known a little bit, right? But
Yeah.
I think, as an elder person, and she knows other people are genuinely like, nah, but like, let me get that medicine now.
Yeah.
Like, and so I do think there's a lot of positive work we can do with our senior folks to maybe get some of our tribal leaders and local legislators to ease
Yeah.
up a little bit,
Yeah.
but
I try not to be such a negative thinker about such things. You know what I mean? So way to present those positive vibes,
I
Jason.
try, man. I
Yeah.
don't always do it, but I want to when I can.
Yeah. No doubt, man. For real. Well, shit, dude. That's like 2 hours from our scheduled time. We started a little bit late, but fuck, I feel like that's a good place to wrap, man. Is there anything else you want to mention before I do my outro dance?
Nah, man, just get involved, people. We got lots of work to do. It's a good time to be involved, but there's still a long way to go.
No doubt. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do my outro dance. This was the 91st episode of Concerned Dabs Podcast. I was your host, Katie M. Kane. My guest tonight, Jason Ortiz from the Minority Cannabis Business Association. Yeah, also doing work with Students for Sensible Drug Policy. He's
That's
gonna
right.
TopFlor in Puerto Rico. Hopefully, you know, if you go down there for Christmas next year, you can find that on the shelf. Make sure you get your medical card issued in your state before you go, because they have reciprocity. So holler at the guy. Follow him online, mcba.org. Jason Ortiz, mostly on Facebook, but he's got them food pics on IG. Y'all check that shit out. I also got to give a shout out to my guys in production, Mitchell Wilson and Jesse Curry. This has been a Main Node and Joseph Street Enterprise production.